The high-value Sigma male is unquestionably enigmatic, and this quality may be traced back to his brilliance, ambition, and defiant spirit. He is not the kind of person whose actions or thoughts are easy to anticipate or fully comprehend. He is a member of a group of men that exists outside of the established order of social hierarchy. Therefore, he does not behave in the manner that she anticipates from him. When it comes to dating and relationships, this dictum holds just as much water. Finding a lifelong companion or a person with whom to have a family is high on the list of concerns for many people who are currently unattached. It is the standard practice. What we have been taught is the standard way of life, and what individuals decide they want or need to have is also a normal way of life. If this desire is real or whether people have been partially bullied into it via some type of social conditioning is a separate problem. On the other hand, the high-value Sigma male is unaffected by this. In point of fact, he has the polar opposite opinion. In this video, we will discuss a total of 8 of the causes. The high-value Sigma male is typically a single individual. Number 1. The presence of a companion is comforting. If a male high-value Sigma finds himself getting emotionally attached with someone, it typically doesn't take him long before he starts to feel smothered and overwhelmed by the romantic connection. This feeling can last for a long time if the high-value Sigma isn't careful. Even if everything are going smoothly. He is accustomed to leading a solitary existence and prefers it that way. Therefore, it may be rather disorienting for him to all of a sudden feel as though he is responsible for ensuring the happiness of another person. At some point, the high-value Sigma male will come to the realization that he longs for his own space and for the way things were in the past, when his one and only commitment was to himself. The high-value Sigma who finds himself in this predicament will typically end up in one of 3 different outcomes as a result. Either his spouse will comprehend what he is going through and provide him with the necessary space and acceptance, or they will break up. They will become disinterested because of the high-value Sigma's actions, or the high-value Sigma will put an end to the relationship for good because they are too afraid to allow it to progress any further. They are not accustomed to incorporating a love companion into their otherwise alone lives. Consequently, for the high-value Sigma male, committing might be an adjustment that is difficult to make. Therefore, in his eyes, it is much simpler to just continue living a single life and committing only to himself. Number 2. He abhors both direct conflict and peaceful resolution. When 2 people are involved in a romantic relationship, arguments are almost certain to arise at some point or another, and in order to settle these differences, compromise will be necessary. A high-value Sigma male is acutely conscious of the fact that the honeymoon phase does not last on indefinitely. And at some point, he will have to deal with things getting rocky, the stigma, avoiding drama like the plague, and hating to be around any negativity or emotional conflict as he finds it extremely draining and a negative influence on his psyche, just as having to compromise on his way of life is a negative influence on his mental health. The high-value Sigma detests being made to feel obligated to modify his conduct or act in a particular manner, despite the fact that compromise is important to the fundamental notion of a partnership. Not being required to make concessions or to check in with a significant person, instead being responsible solely to account to oneself. One of the most common pieces of advice given to men who have been stigmatized is to steer clear of being involved in any type of long-term relationship and to remain single for the foreseeable by just being free to enjoy life on his own terms. Number 3. He does not talk much. The one with a high value, the Sigma male, typically does not have romantic relationships since he is quite secretive and likes to keep his cards pretty close to his chest. Because of this, individuals who do not know him well may be put off by the impression that he gives off as being unwelcoming and standoffish. However, due to the fact that he is an introvert, he tends to remain in the background rather than being the center of attention during social gatherings. This is demonstrated by the fact that he can only comfortably converse with 1 or 2 individuals at a time and that he requires a precise time and place that has been set in advance to meet up with a particular person. This is in sharp contrast to extroverts, who are quite content to create spontaneous plans whenever the mood strikes them. The high-value Sigma is not renowned for their spontaneous nature and is more of an ahead planner. And doesn't like being around other people too much, instead to spend time by themselves. This introversion and lack of bravery implies that when he goes out, he is unlikely to approach anyone who catches his eye to start a discussion, even if it is essential. If it were necessary, he would be reluctant to do so. As a direct consequence of this, the high-value Sigma has extremely few encounters with new potential business partners. Number 4. His ambitions take precedence over anything else. Being a high-value Sigma male indicates that he has laser-like concentration on doing anything he sets out to do. These are, without question, his highest priority. This indicates that everything else in his life takes a backseat to his career. And this includes sexual relationships, which he views as being little more than diversions and, as a result, impediments to his own personal achievement. They demand hard effort, commitment, and dedication, all of which the high-value Sigma male just does not have the time for. In general, he is not prepared to make concessions when it comes to the allocation of his time. He has a great deal of ambition and is aware that time is the most valuable resource we have. If he spends time on another person, then he has less time to devote to the things that are most important to him, such as advancing in his profession, finishing personal projects, and working on his physical and mental health. If he spends time on another person, then he has less time to devote to the things that are most important to him. Being in a relationship prevents him from concentrating on his objectives, which in turn depletes the energy he needs to make progress toward his objectives. And because of the enormous impact that this has on him, he nearly always chooses to live his life alone. Number 5. He opposes the established order of society. Pressure and expectations. The fact that it is expected of him to adhere to what other people require of him significantly wears down the Stigma. Whether it be by his friends, job, or society as a whole, he has a natural tendency to defy the standards of acceptable behavior that are set by society. When we apply it to his relationships, we see that he has a natural disdain for being taught what's normal, and this disdain manifests itself in a few different ways. To begin, the high-value Sigma male's energy levels can be significantly depleted when he is expected to mingle with his partner's friends or family, or when he is required to participate in activities as part of the pair even when he is not in the mood for them, such as attending geekouts. It doesn't take much work for him to maintain relationships with the individuals he already knows. Never mind adding another person into the mix along with their own set of problems. Second, as a man who goes against the grain of social standards, he does not appreciate the way that society implies that we need to be in a relationship in order to be happy and how. That is what is expected of us. He believes that we should be happy regardless of whether or not we are in a relationship. The one with a high-value Sigma male doesn't believe in one. Unless, of course, you count the one as being him, which would be a different scenario. He is dead set against the notion that we could ever find someone who could replace ourselves as our better half because he is of the opinion that the relationship we have with ourselves is the one that matters the most. This is utter nonsensical, as if the two of us weren't already complete in and of ourselves. According to him, he experiences a greater sense of happiness and freedom when he is not constrained in any way by the activities that make up his typical day. Therefore, it is easy to understand why the stereotype of the single guy persists. Number 6. He is very capable of taking care of himself. People who aren't familiar with the high-value Sigma male very well could get the impression that he is unyielding at times, but in reality, he is merely a force of genuine independence. He is the type of man that is aware of his own thoughts and desires, and he never puts his trust in other people for anything. Because he is only concerned with his own thoughts, feelings, and choices, he is not in need of the approval of others. He only cares about what he thinks, how he feels, and what he decides. Because the high-value Sigma has spent so much time alone himself and thinking about himself in order to come to know himself better, he is entirely focused on satisfying his own requirements and realizing his own ambitions. Because he has adopted this mentality, he has acquired the skills necessary to become completely independent and disregards any outside influence. The conventional wisdom held by society that having a companion makes life more meaningful. Any individual who finds themselves in a relationship with a high-value Sigma male must be willing to tolerate his seeming intransigence in order for the two of them to coexist together. However, before too much longer, they all came to the conclusion that waiting for a high-value Sigma male to enter their life was time well spent. Number 7. He spends far too much time in his own company. If he was stranded on an island by himself and had to choose one person to spend the night with, the high-value Sigma male would pick himself every time. Because he is an introvert, he enjoys spending time alone and takes advantage of each opportunity that presents itself. Because of this, finding a significant other is typically not one of the items on his list of goals for the year. On the other hand, he has already accomplished the goal of developing the ideal connection with himself by becoming an expert in the art of self-care and being self-sufficient. And when we add to that the fact that he is kept occupied by his various loves, hobbies, and personal ambitions, it is simple to understand why a relationship would not fit into the life of a high-value Sigma student very well. When he is alone himself and able to relax completely in his own company, he experiences the most joy. The high-value Sigma male is not in the least bit eager to rush head first into a romantic partnership. Even though he recognizes the benefits of being in a relationship, he is accustomed to being asked how he avoids feeling lonely. However, for the high-value Sigma male, being alone does not imply feelings of loneliness. Because he enjoys his own company the most and is at his happiest when he is alone himself. Number 8. He has a wild and carefree nature. Having such a carefree attitude, a very valuable one, the Sigma male places a high priority on his independence, and as a result, he avoids situations that might cause him to feel confined in any way. Unfortunately, the nature of a typical relationship is such that, in most cases, being in a committed one causes him to feel tied down, which, while we're on the subject, merely leads to anxiety and sadness. The high-value Sigma male values independence from relationships in many other ways than the most apparent ones. One of the features that helps to define a high-value Sigma male is the fact that, whenever it is feasible for him to do so, he would much rather lead a nomadic existence. He has a difficult time dealing with routine and dislikes the idea of spending his whole life in the same location. His dreams and aspirations typically involve seeing the entire world, spending time in other nations, gaining exposure to a variety of cultures, and traveling through stunning regions. Because of their strong need for autonomy, high-value Sigma males may find it challenging to form romantic relationships with other people. They are aware that it is possible that they will not remain in this area for very long. Therefore, they don't see the need in beginning anything that may potentially be significant. It is just much simpler for the high-value Sigma male to avoid becoming involved in a relationship altogether in order to prevent future grief for both themselves and their partner.
Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And do share with your friends so we may continue to create them. To see more videos like this, subscribe and don't forget to turn on the notification bell. Additionally, make sure to check out our other videos. Thank you for watching.